Have you ever noticed how a blustery day makes you feel different almost instantly? You step outside, the wind hits your face, the air feels sharper, louder, more alive, and suddenly your thoughts start moving faster too. What if I told you that this isn't random at all? A windy day can directly change your brain chemistry and unlock a surprising boost in creativity. Here's something fascinating. Your brain is constantly responding to your environment even when you're not aware of it. On calm, still days, your nervous system tends to settle into a predictable rhythm. That's great for routine tasks, but creativity thrives on novelty. A blustery day introduces controlled chaos. The sound of the wind, the movement of trees, the shifting clouds, all of that gives your brain new sensory input to process. When the wind picks up, your brain's reticular activating system becomes more alert. This system filters information and decides what gets your attention. Wind forces it to wake up. You become more present, more aware, and that heightened awareness is a key ingredient for creative thinking. There's also an emotional component. Wind naturally stimulates mild stress, not the harmful kind, but what we call eustress. This type of stress increases dopamine and norepinephrine, chemicals that sharpen focus and motivation. Dopamine, in particular, is strongly linked to creative insight. It helps your brain connect ideas that normally stay separate. That's why some of your best ideas don't come when you're perfectly relaxed. They come when you're slightly stimulated, slightly challenged, but still safe. A blustery day does exactly that. It nudges your brain out of autopilot. Now let's talk about emotions. Wind changes how you feel on a subconscious level. It can make you feel reflective, energized, or even a little restless. That emotional shift matters. Creativity is not just logical thinking, it's emotional processing. When emotions move, ideas move with them. Think about it. On a windy day, you're less likely to scroll mindlessly. You might look out the window longer. You might feel an urge to write, sketch, plan, or rethink something in your life. That's your brain responding to environmental contrast. Contrast is fuel for creativity. There's also a physical side to this. Wind increases oxygen circulation when you're outdoors. More oxygen means better brain metabolism. Your neurons fire more efficiently. Even short exposure can improve mental clarity. This is one reason walking on a windy day often sparks ideas you couldn't access indoors. Interestingly, wind also reduces mental rigidity. When your surroundings are constantly shifting, your brain mirrors that flexibility. You become more open to new perspectives. That's why problem solving often improves during or after time spent in dynamic environments. Let me share a practical insight. Many highly creative people instinctively seek movement. They pace, they walk, they change locations. Wind provides external movement, which stimulates internal movement. Your thoughts stop looping and start exploring. Now here's something most people miss. On blustery days, your brain produces more alpha waves when you're focused. Alpha waves are associated with relaxed alertness, the exact state where creativity flourishes. You're calm enough to think clearly, but alert enough to notice subtle connections. This is why forcing creativity in a silent, controlled environment doesn't always work. The brain needs stimulation, but not overwhelm. Wind hits that sweet spot. If you want to use this to your advantage, try this. On a windy day, don't fight the conditions. Open a window. Step outside for 5 minutes. Let the sounds and sensations register. Then sit down with a notebook or your phone and write without judging. You'll often be surprised how easily ideas flow. Another powerful tip is to pair wind exposure with intention. Before going outside, ask yourself a simple question you want clarity on. Don't try to answer it immediately. Let your brain work in the background. The combination of movement, fresh air, and sensory input often leads to unexpected insights. This also explains why storms within reason can be creatively stimulating. The brain senses change coming. It prepares, adapts, and reorganizes. Creativity is adaptation in mental form. On the flip side, if you ever feel mentally stuck, stagnant, or uninspired, check your environment. Too much stillness can dull creative energy. Adding safe, natural stimulation can restart it. So the next time a blustery day rolls in, don't see it as an inconvenience. See it as a neurological opportunity. Your brain is being invited to wake up, feel more, notice more, and connect more. Creativity isn't something you force. It's something you allow by creating the right conditions. And sometimes, all it takes is a little wind to shake loose the ideas that were already there, just waiting to move. Gave 3 keynote. Blustery wind stimulates the brain's alert system, increasing dopamine and norepinephrine, which boosts focus, mental flexibility, and the ability to connect ideas creatively. The emotional shift caused by wind creates mild, healthy stimulation that moves feelings and thoughts, helping break mental stagnation and allowing fresh perspectives and inspiration to surface. Natural movement, sound, and increased oxygen from a windy environment improve brain metabolism and alpha brain waves, placing the mind in an ideal state for creative insight and problem solving. Have you ever noticed that on a windy day, your mind feels sharper, more awake, almost like someone turned up the volume on your awareness? That's not your imagination. When blustery wind hits your face, your brain instantly switches modes. It moves from passive to alert. This happens because wind strongly activates a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. Think of this system as your brain's gatekeeper. It decides what gets your attention and what gets ignored. On calm days, it stays relaxed. On windy days, it wakes up. The moment the wind starts moving around you, your nervous system senses change. Change equals importance to the brain. From an evolutionary standpoint, moving air could signal weather shifts, danger, or opportunity, so your brain responds by increasing alertness. This alertness is not anxiety, it's a focused readiness. And this is where creativity begins. When alertness increases, your brain releases 2 powerful chemicals, dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine is often called the motivation chemical, but it's also the creativity chemical. It helps your brain form new connections between ideas that normally stay separate. Norepinephrine sharpens attention and improves signal clarity in the brain. Together, these chemicals create a mental environment where ideas flow faster and more freely. This is why creativity doesn't thrive when the brain is bored or overstimulated. It thrives in a state of optimal alertness. A blustery day naturally puts your brain into that state without you having to force it. Now, here's something very interesting. Dopamine doesn't just make you feel good. It increases cognitive flexibility. That means your brain becomes less rigid. You stop thinking in straight lines and start thinking in patterns, metaphors, and associations. This is critical for creative thinking. When dopamine levels rise slightly, your brain becomes more willing to explore possibilities instead of repeating the same thoughts. Wind creates unpredictability. The sound shifts, the pressure changes, the temperature fluctuates. Your brain mirrors this external variability by becoming internally flexible. That flexibility is what allows you to see a problem from a new angle or come up with a unique idea that didn't exist before. Another important point is attention span. Many people think creativity requires long, deep focus with no distractions. That's not entirely true. Creativity requires dynamic attention. Wind provides what we call soft fascination. It gently holds your attention without demanding it. This keeps the brain engaged but relaxed, which is ideal for insight. When the brain is in this state, alpha brain waves increase. Alpha waves are linked to relaxed alertness, imagination, and idea generation. This is the same brainwave pattern seen during light meditation or daydreaming, but with one key difference. On a windy day, alpha waves coexist with heightened alertness. That combination is powerful. Let's talk about stress, because this is often misunderstood. Wind creates a mild stress response. Not chronic stress, not harmful stress, but short-term stimulation. This type of stress is beneficial. It increases resilience and enhances performance. The body releases small amounts of cortisol, just enough to mobilize energy and sharpen focus, but not enough to shut down creativity. In fact, too little stimulation leads to mental stagnation. Too much stimulation leads to overwhelm. Wind sits right in the middle. It challenges the brain, just enough to wake it up. This is why many people report having their best ideas while walking outside, especially on breezy days. Movement plus wind amplifies T. His effect. Physical movement already increases blood flow to the brain. Add wind and you amplify sensory input. More blood flow plus more sensory data equals better idea generation. Oxygen plays a role here as well. Wind improves air circulation, especially outdoors. More oxygen means better mitochondrial function in brain cells. Your neurons become more efficient. When brain cells produce energy more efficiently, thinking becomes clearer and faster. Creativity requires energy. A tired brain doesn't innovate. There's also an emotional shift that happens. Wind often creates a sense of possibility. It can feel refreshing, invigorating, or even slightly dramatic. Emotions are not separate from creativity. They drive it. Dopamine enhances emotional responsiveness, which makes ideas feel more meaningful and motivating. This emotional engagement matters. When you feel something, your brain pays attention. When your brain pays attention, it remembers and connects. This is why ideas that come on blustery days often feel stronger or more exciting than ideas forced in stillness. Another fascinating aspect is how wind affects the default mode network in the brain. This network is responsible for imagination, reflection, and internal dialogue. When the brain receives novel sensory input, the default mode network becomes more active, but less repetitive. Instead of looping the same thoughts, it starts exploring new ones. That's why wind can break mental ruts. If you've been stuck on a problem, doing the same thinking in the same environment rarely works. Change the environment and you change the brain's activity patterns. Wind is one of the simplest ways to introduce that change naturally. Now let's bring this into something practical. If you want to harness this effect intentionally, timing matters. Creative tasks done during or shortly after wind exposure tend to be more productive. This is because dopamine and norepinephrine stay elevated for a short period even after the stimulus ends. So a simple strategy is this. Spend 5 to 10 minutes outside on a blustery day. No phone, no distractions. Just walk or stand and observe. Let your senses engage fully. Then sit down and work on something creative. Writing, planning, brainstorming, or problem solving. You'll often notice that ideas come with less effort. Another key point is posture and breathing. Wind naturally encourages deeper breathing. Deeper breathing increases oxygen delivery and activates the parasympathetic nervous system while maintaining alertness. This combination keeps you calm but sharp. There's also a psychological component. Wind symbolizes movement and change. Even subconsciously, this primes your brain to think differently. The mind responds to symbols and patterns constantly, even when you're not aware of it. This is why people often associate windy weather with inspiration, reflection, or turning points. The brain uses external cues to guide internal states. One more thing worth mentioning is that dopamine works best in balance. You don't need extreme stimulation. You don't need chaos. Just enough novelty to wake the brain up. Blustery wind provides that in a natural, non-digital way. No screens, no artificial stimulation, just real sensory input. This matters because artificial stimulation often overwhelms dopamine pathways, leading to fatigue and reduced creativity. Natural stimulation restores them. So when we say that blustery wind boosts creativity by increasing dopamine and norepinephrine, we're really talking about restoring the brain's natural rhythm. Alert, flexible, emotionally engaged, and energetically supported. Creativity isn't about trying harder. It's about putting your brain in the right state. And sometimes the most powerful tools are the simplest ones: a little wind, a little movement, and a brain that's ready to connect ideas in ways it couldn't before. The next time you feel mentally dull or creatively blocked, pay attention to the weather. If the wind is moving, your brain is being invited to move with it. And when the brain moves, creativity follows. Expand Keynote 2 for 1,500 words. Have you ever noticed how your mood subtly shifts on a windy day, even if nothing else in your life has changed? You might feel more thoughtful, slightly restless, energized, or emotionally awake. This emotional movement is not random. It's one of the most powerful ways a blustery day supports creativity. When emotions move, thoughts move. And when thoughts move, new ideas are born. The brain and emotions are deeply connected. Creativity is not just logic or intelligence, it's emotional processing turned into expression. On still, quiet days, emotions often settle into predictable patterns. That can feel comfortable, but it can also lead to mental stagnation. Wind disrupts emotional stillness in a healthy way. It introduces motion, sound, and unpredictability, which gently stirs emotional states. This emotional shift begins in the limbic system, the part of the brain that processes feelings, memory, and motivation. When the environment changes suddenly, like when the wind picks up, the limbic system becomes more active. This increased activity brings emotions closer to the surface. You become more aware of how you feel, even if you can't put it into words yet. That awareness is critical for creativity. Many creative breakthroughs happen not because someone tried harder, but because they finally felt something clearly. Wind helps unlock that clarity by nudging emotions out of autopilot. There's also a sense of movement that wind creates internally. Even when you're standing still, the environment is moving ARO. Undue. The brain mirrors this. Emotional energy starts flowing instead of sitting dormant. This flow makes it easier to process feelings that may have been suppressed or ignored during routine, structured days. This is why blustery weather often brings reflection. People find themselves thinking about life, decisions, relationships, or goals. Reflection is not overthinking, it's emotional digestion. Creativity feeds on this digestion process. When emotions are processed, they often transform into ideas, stories, solutions, or insights. Wind also creates a mild sense of restlessness. This is important. Restlessness is often seen as negative, but in small doses, it's a creative signal. It means your brain is ready for change. It's no longer satisfied with repeating the same mental patterns. That dissatisfaction pushes you to explore new possibilities. Emotionally, this restlessness can feel like a desire to do something meaningful, to write, to plan, to create, to rethink. That urge is creativity knocking. Another powerful effect of wind is emotional contrast. When the environment shifts from calm to dynamic, your emotional baseline shifts too. Contrast heightens perception. When perception sharpens, emotions feel more vivid. Vivid emotions fuel expressive thinking. This is why artists, writers, and thinkers throughout history have been drawn to dramatic weather, not because of discomfort, but because of emotional intensity. Wind adds texture to experience. It makes feelings less flat. There's also a sense of unpredictability that wind brings. The brain loves patterns, but creativity requires breaking patterns. When the environment behaves unpredictably, the brain becomes more comfortable with uncertainty. This emotional tolerance for uncertainty is crucial for creativity. Many people block creativity because they fear not knowing the outcome. Wind gently train the brain to accept uncertainty without panic. You feel the wind change direction, strength, sound. You adapt emotionally in real time. That adaptability carries over into thinking. Another subtle emotional effect of wind is increased presence. The sensation of wind on your skin pulls attention into the present moment. You're less stuck in the past or anxious about the future. Presence is where creativity lives. You can't create in yesterday or tomorrow. You create now. When emotions are anchored in the present, they become usable. Instead of vague stress or dullness, you experience clearer emotional signals. Those signals guide creative choices. Wind also tends to reduce emotional numbness. Modern life often overloads the brain with constant, low-level stimulation from screens and noise. This can dull emotional sensitivity. Natural wind cuts through that numbness. It's a clean, physical sensation that reawakens emotional responsiveness. This reawakening doesn't mean emotional overwhelm. It means emotional availability. You feel more alive, more engaged. That aliveness is the foundation of creativity. There's also an emotional symbolism at play. Wind represents movement, transition, and change. Even subconsciously, the brain responds to these symbols. You may feel a sense of renewal or possibility without knowing why. This symbolic layer adds depth to creative thought. This is why blustery days often inspire new beginnings. You might feel motivated to start a project, revise an idea, or let go of something that no longer fits. Creativity thrives in transition. Another important aspect is how wind affects emotional regulation. Mild environmental stimulation helps balance emotional extremes. It can lift low mood by increasing sensory input, and it can calm racing thoughts by grounding attention in physical sensation. This balance creates emotional stability. Energy, an ideal state for creative work. When emotions are too flat, there's no inspiration. When emotions are too intense, there's no clarity. Wind helps find the middle ground. Now let's talk about emotional memory. Emotions and memory are tightly linked. When you experience emotions during creative thinking, your brain forms stronger memory associations. Ideas generated in emotionally engaging environments tend to stick. They feel more meaningful and memorable. This is why ideas that come during windy walks are often remembered more vividly than ideas forced at a desk. The emotional context anchors the idea. There's also a social emotional effect. Wind often makes people feel more connected to their environment. That sense of connection can extend inward. You may feel more connected to your values, your purpose, or your inner voice. Creativity often emerges from that connection. This inner listening is difficult in overly controlled environments. Wind introduces just enough noise to quiet mental chatter and amplify intuitive signals. If you want to use this emotional shift intentionally, try pairing wind exposure with emotional curiosity. Instead of asking, "What should I create?" ask, "What am I feeling right now?" Let the answer be vague if it needs to be. Then create from that space. The result is often more authentic and original. Another practical approach is journaling immediately after being outside on a blustery day. Don't censor yourself. Let emotional fragments come out. These fragments often turn into ideas, themes, or solutions later. The key takeaway here is that creativity is not blocked by lack of talent. It's blocked by emotional stagnation. Wind helps release that stagnation safely and naturally. So when a blustery day arrives, understand that it's not just weather. It's an emotional reset. It's your nervous system being gently nudged into motion. It's your feelings being invited to speak. And when emotions move, creativity follows. Not forced, not strained, just naturally flowing, shaped by the same wind that stirred it awake in the first place. Have you ever noticed that your mind feels clearer and lighter after spending time outside on a windy day? That clarity isn't just psychological. There is a real physical process happening in your brain and body that places you in an ideal state for creative insight and problem solving. Natural movement, sound, and fresh air work together to shift your brain into what many neuroscientists describe as the creative sweet spot. Let's start with movement. Even if you're standing still, a blustery environment is never still. Trees sway, clouds race, air presses and releases against your body. Your brain is constantly tracking motion, and this activates sensory and motor pathways at the same time. When these pathways are active together, the brain becomes more integrated. Different regions communicate more efficiently, which is essential for creative thinking. Creativity is not located in one part of the brain. It's the result of multiple areas working together, especially those involved in imagination, attention, emotio, and memory. Natural movement in the environment encourages this coordination. The brain synchronizes itself to what it senses, and that synchronization improves idea generation. Sound plays a powerful role here as well. The sound of wind is not repetitive or predictable like artificial noise. It rises and falls, shifts tone, and changes rhythm. This type of sound is known as non-linear sound, and it has a calming yet engaging effect on the nervous system. It keeps the brain interested without overwhelming it. This balance is crucial. When the brain is understimulated, it becomes dull. When it's overstimulated, it becomes scattered. Wind sound keeps the brain gently occupied, which reduces internal noise like excessive self-talk or mental looping. When that internal noise quiets down, creative insight has room to emerge. Fresh air and oxygen are another major factor. Wind improves air circulation, especially outdoors. When you breathe more deeply and consistently, oxygen levels in the blood increase. The brain consumes a large amount of oxygen relative to its size. Even small improvements in oxygen delivery can enhance mental performance. At the cellular level, oxygen supports mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy producers inside your brain cells. When they work efficiently, neurons fire more smoothly and consistently. This efficiency translates into clearer thinking, faster association, and better mental endurance. Creativity requires energy, not just inspiration. Now let's talk about brainwaves, because this is where things get especially interesting. On blustery days, especially when you're outside or near open air, the brain often shifts into a state dominated by alpha waves. Alpha waves are associated with relaxed alertness, imagination, and insight. This is the same brain state seen during light meditation, creative flow, and moments of sudden understanding. What makes wind unique is that it encourages alpha waves without making you sleepy. You're relaxed, but you're still alert. This is different from passive relaxation like lying down or zoning out. In the alpha state, supported by natural movement and sound, the mind stays awake and curious. This state allows ideas to surface from the subconscious more easily. Many creative breakthroughs don't come from deliberate thinking. They appear suddenly as connections form below conscious awareness. Alpha waves act as a bridge between conscious focus and subconscious processing. Wind also helps regulate the nervous system. It stimulates both the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches in a balanced way. You're energized but not tense, calm but not sluggish. This balance is ideal for problem solving because you can engage challenges without emotional resistance. Another key effect of natural movement and sound is how they reduce cognitive rigidity. Cognitive rigidity is a tendency to stick with familiar patterns of thought. It's one of the biggest barriers to creativity. Dynamic environments encourage mental flexibility. When your surroundings are constantly shifting, your brain adapts by becoming more flexible too. This flexibility allows you to see alternative solutions, imagine different outcomes, and explore ideas without immediately judging them. Judgment is often the enemy of creativity. Wind softens judgment by keeping the mind in motion. There's also an attentional benefit. Wind encourages what psychologists call open monitoring attention. Instead of narrowing focus onto one thing, your attention becomes broad and receptive. This allows you to notice subtle connections and patterns that focused attention might miss. Open attention is essential for creative insight. Many great ideas come from noticing relationships between things that don't seem related at first. Wind-supported attention creates space for those relationships to appear. Another important point is embodiment. Wind makes you more aware of your body. You feel air on your skin, changes in temperature, shifts in balance. This bodily awareness grounds thinking. When the mind is grounded in the body, it becomes less abstract and more intuitive. Intuition is a major component of creativity. It's the ability to sense what feels right before you can explain why. Natural sensory input strengthens this intuitive channel by keeping the mind connected to physical experience. Wind also disrupts time perception in a helpful way. Many people feel rushed or mentally constrained by schedules. On blustery days, time can feel more fluid. This reduces performance pressure. When pressure drops, creativity rises. Another fascinating aspect is memory integration. Creative problem solving often involves combining old memories in new ways. Alpha brainwaves support this integration process. When the brain is relaxed and alert, memories are more accessible and flexible. Wind-supported states enhance this access. This is why ideas often appear while walking or being outdoors rather than sitting at a desk. The brain is free to roam. If you want to use this effect intentionally, simplicity is key. You don't need long exposure. Even 5 to 15 minutes outside on a blustery day can shift brain chemistry and brain waves. The key is to be present. Avoid headphones or screens. Let your senses do the work. Afterward, engage in a creative task without forcing it. Writing, planning, drawing, brainstorming, or problem solving all benefit from this state. You may notice that ideas feel less effortful and more natural. Another effective approach is to use wind exposure as a reset during creative blocks. If you feel mentally tired or stuck, stepping into a dynamic environment can quickly restore clarity. The beauty of this process is that it's natural and sustainable. Unlike artificial stimulation, natural movement and sound support the brain without exhausting it. They work with your nervous system, not against it. So when we talk about blustery days supporting creativity through movement, sound, oxygen, and alpha brainwaves, we're really talking about restoring the brain's natural rhythm, a rhythm that modern life often disrupts. Creativity isn't something you manufacture, it's something that emerges when the brain is balanced, energized, and open. A blustery day provides all of those conditions at once. The next time the wind picks up, don't retreat from it. Step into it even briefly. Let your brain synchronize with the movement around you. In that moment of alignment, clarity appears, ideas connect, and creativity flows, not because you forced it, but because you finally gave your brain the environment it was designed to thrive in.